So please welcome up onto the stage this morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Abdurahman Afia.
Tested by failure, shaped by decisions with real consequence. For over 2 decades, he's helped leaders perform when there's no room for error. As CEO of Afia Partners, he works with organizations that demand clarity, alignment, and results. His insights have reached billions, with millions engaging every week. And in The Unlikely Leader, his message is simple. Leadership isn't your title, it's your standard when it counts. Today, he brings that standard to the Capital Wealth Summit.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today, all the people that have been behind the scenes organizing this incredible event, and of all the people to follow on afterwards. I'm going on after you, my friend, which makes my job maybe that little bit more difficult. Some of you may be familiar with me, and some of you might be seeing me for the first time. What I'm going to do, of course, is just behind me now, just bring up some images of me when I was younger. I grew up in the city of London. That's, of course, where I'm from, and got it. Okay. There we go. Oh, jumping the gun. It's perfect that there's this little glitch, because I'm talking about leading through crisis. And anybody that stands on a stage, when that happens, they might look all right, but inside they're thinking, what the hell is going on? So, yeah, smile all the way through it. As I said, let's try it again. Grew up in the city of London. This is a picture of me when I was just a wee lad, 6 years old. Always had a cheeky smile on my face. I looked a little different back then, right? I didn't have a big beard when I was 6 years old. Then this is a picture of me as I grew a little bit older. I called this my Italian phase. I thought it was, I thought it would sound cool if I told people that actually I was from Italy for some reason. I used to try and get girls I thought I'd appeal to them more by telling them that, yeah, I'm from Italy. In fact, I went as far as telling people that our family name, which is A-F-I-A, Afia, was originally with an M, Mafia, but the family back in... I'm not making this up. My mother's in the audience today, and she would call me out if I was not telling you the truth. I used to tell people that, yeah, actually our family name was Mafia, but the family back in Sicily told us not to pay too much attention, cancel the M, and we became known as the Afias. Speaking of my mother, this is a picture of me with my mother and my sister standing outside my father's shop in Baker Street, London. Growing up, I had everything you could ever want. My parents gave me the most wonderful life. I had a privileged life. We lived in an incredible home in St. John's Wood. Anyone that's from the UK is familiar, I'm sure, with St. John's Wood. Beautiful part of the city. Incredible house. I never had to worry about money. My mother and, of course, my father here took care of me and gave me everything that I could ever want. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, they sent me to a place called Mensa to be assessed. If you've heard of Mensa, could you just put your hand up? Okay, so not everybody. It's quite controversial, actually, but it's a place that they send you to assess your level of IQ, your intelligence levels. A little controversial. However, they sent me in there to be assessed as a young boy, and they were delighted to be told by the people at Mensa, your son tested at genius level. Yeah, apparently when I did the test, they came back and they said to my mum and dad, genius, absolute genius. I then went on after that to bitterly disappoint them year after year by getting expelled and kicked out of every school I ever went to. I failed every exam I ever took until I was 18 years old. Absolutely hopeless. They gave me everything. I gave them nothing back. I disappointed them year after year after year. One day, I did something that disappointed them so much. It took me from having everything, all the money I wanted, all the designer clothes I could wear, the most beautiful home and everything that came with it. One decision I made took me from having all of that. And just like that, overnight, I lost it all. I found myself homeless on the streets of London. All right, before I go any further, let me ask you a question. I want to make sure everybody's listening. If you're a good listener, could you just put one hand up for me? If you're a good listener. If you're an amazing listener, both hands up. Confident. All right, I like it. Let's put it to the test, because the worst thing that can happen is I finish my talk and say, thank you for listening, and people are like, what was he saying? I want to make sure you're with me. So I'm going to ask everybody just to stand up. If you're able to stand, stand. If you're not able to stand, just raise your head so I can see everybody. Yeah, I know. What's he doing getting us to stand? All right. Okay. Are my slides still? Oh. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to give you a very quick listening test. By the way, everything I do is super simple. Everything I do, I make as easy as it could be. I'm not here to confuse anybody or anything like that. I'm just going to ask you to do exactly what I say, okay? Hopefully everybody can see me. I'm going to ask you now. Let me go back. Okay. Don't think those are my slides. Not a problem. It's okay. All eyes on me. What I need you to do, put your hands like, if you're able to, put your hands in front of you. Okay. All I want you to do is exactly what I say. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say 1, 2, when I everybody to clap who's able to. Clear? Is it clear or not? All right, because if you get it wrong, I don't want to hear any excuses afterwards like, oh, I wasn't clear. Just like this. I'm going to say 1, 2. When I say 3, we all clap. Clear? Okay. Are you ready? I believe in you. 1, 2, 3. Were my instructions clear? What did I say? I said, when I say 3, we clap. What happened? The brightest minds in the room, the best people when it comes to wealth and investment. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure. What happened? Tell me. Where did it go wrong? You followed. It was my voice. Intuition. You thought I was going to do something, but I did something different. Okay. You see, all that you did is what happens when I do this. 80% of the people, they do exactly what you did. Not everybody, but 80% of people, they do it. And that's because we follow what people do, not what people say. Reality is, nobody cares what you say. They follow what you do. And if you're responsible for a team, or if you're responsible for any group of people, anyone more than just yourself, then you are going to influence the people around you, and it's not going to be by the words that come out of your mouth, it's going to be by your actions. That's what leadership is all about. You lead by example, and if you're not leading by example, you're really not leading at all. Now, let's do it a second time before some of you sit down. Stand back up if you're able to. And we're going to do it one more time. No gimmicks, no games. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. When I say 3, we're going to clap. Okay? 80% of the people get it wrong the first time. About 80% of the people get it right the second time. Let's see. Put your arms out. At the back. Everyone got their arms out? Good. Okay. When I say 3, we clap. I believe in you. You got this. That's a nervous laugh that's put me off now. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, well, most of you got it there. Well done. Have a seat. Okay, good. Now I know that you're all, well, not all, I know that most of you now, you're listening. But it's true, nobody cares what you say. It's all about the example that you put forward. People will follow what you do, not what you say. Now let me just go back to finish that short story before we get into the short talk that I'm going to do today. My family, one of the things that we used to do, a very close family, And every Friday night, my parents would take us out to the same Italian restaurant, almost every Friday night. It was called La Casalinga in London. I would put a picture up behind me, but I think the slides are still not with me, but that's okay. It's a traditional Italian restaurant. I think it's closed down now. It used to be Paul McCartney's favorite restaurant. We used to go there every Friday night, and I'd have the same thing every time. I'd have spaghetti with tomato sauce, and I'd finish with a lemon sorbet. And on that night, I finished, okay, great. We're almost caught up. There you go, La Casalinga. On that night, at that restaurant, I finished my lemon sorbet, and my father turned to me to confront me about the decision that I told you I made, which changed my life. You see, a few months before I went to that restaurant, I converted. I converted to the faith of Islam. I became a Muslim. I knew that just like many things I'd done in my life, I knew it upset my family. I knew it upset my mother and father, but I didn't know how much it had upset them. I didn't understand how much it hurt them when I did that. Anyway, we're sitting down, I'm finishing my sorbet. My father turned to me and he said, listen, you have a decision to make. Tonight you're going to make a decision. I said, what, Dad? He said, this new life that you found, this new faith that you've adopted, it's fine. I have no problem with it. But not in my house. Tonight you make a decision. You either leave this new way of life and we go home as normal. Nothing changes. Take over the family business. Nothing changes. Or stick to your guns, stick to what you've done, keep your faith, do what you like. But from this moment, you're not coming home with us tonight and you're not going to be my son. I don't view you as my son. If you're going to throw out everything we raised you to be, we're done. I said, Dad, don't do this. I looked at them, I said, Dad, Mum, my sister Jenny, I said, please don't do this. Make your decision. 10 minutes later, I was alone in the restaurant. They had left. The good thing is they did pay the bill before leaving. Otherwise, I'd probably be still doing it until now. But I found myself alone in the restaurant on a cold winter's night in London. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have money because I never needed money. I didn't have a phone at that time. I had no choice, just nothing. 18 years old, homeless. The only thing that I could think to do was to walk to the local mosque. It was in Baker Street. So I walked and I sat outside that mosque until it opened for the morning prayers around about 3:30 at that time. That moment in my life was probably, having had such a privileged life, my first experience of a crisis. And in those days, of course, I wasn't thinking about leadership. I was thinking about surviving. But when I look back, I know that I learned a valuable lesson that I'll never forget. And it applies to anyone in a leadership position, which is this: as long as everything's going fine, everything's cool. As a leader, when everything's going smoothly and operations are running as they're meant to, you're not really that valuable. But it's things unexpected. It's when things don't go according to plan. When the sky feels like it's about to fall down and the ground feels like it's about to open up and swallow you, it's at those times that crisis will really determine your future. I always say, you can't avoid crisis as a leader, no matter how many people you're responsible, whether you're a leader of a family, a leader of a team, leader of a business, you can't avoid at some point crisis. The question is, right on cue, crisis doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. So when crisis hits, who will you be? You know, a few years ago, I received a phone call. About 5 years ago, I received a phone call. And it was from a Saudi television channel. I used to live in Saudi Arabia. Before living in Dubai for 5 years, I lived in Saudi for 21 years. I was contacted by a Saudi TV network. They said, we want you on the show, we want to interview you. I said, great. I'd be delighted. I looked up the show and it was the same program with the same interviewer who interviews people at the very highest level. He just 2 weeks before that had His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman. He was the person that he'd last interviewed. They said, we want you next. I got worried. So what if I say the wrong thing? I don't know if I'm ready for this. They said, don't worry about a thing. The interviewer's the best in the country, and he's going to meet you before and prepare you and everything. You've got nothing to worry about. There'll be a translator. Relax. So, okay, I'll do it. Why not? It's a good opportunity. I sat down for the interview. It was during Ramadan, and it was live. The whole time that the conversation between me and the person interviewing me is happening before we go live, there's one question that I've got in my mind, which is, where's the translator? Like, where's the translator? My Arabic, by the way, despite living in Saudi Arabia for 21 years, is broken at best. I mean, I can get by. I've got a few words, but it goes downhill rapidly after the first 60 seconds. This interview was going to be 90 minutes. The person interviewing me, he said in his earpiece, in Arabic, he said, where's Ahmed? Ahmed was the translator. I didn't know that until I heard the voice on the other end of the earpiece saying, my Arabic's not good. La la la. It was, I don't know where he was from, but it was quite frantic. And he said, la la la. Ahmed, huwa fi ijaza. Something like that, which I think means, and I understood it to be, he's on vacation. I've looked at the interviewer. He's looked back at me. He smiled. I'm smiling, but inside I'm dying. And there's a guy saying, 3, 2, 1. And then the music started and the program began. I wasn't ready for that at all. Talk about the earth swallowing me up at that point. It's live. I've let everybody know I'm going on television. Watch it. I'm going to kill it. And all of a sudden, the camera, you can find it. If you type in YouTube, Abdurahman Afia interview, it's probably the second or third one there. I don't know if you can see it, but I panicked. But what did I do beforehand? I remembered some of the things that I help leaders with. It was one of those things where you teach people, you help people, and all of a sudden you find yourself in that situation and you're like, okay, let me practice what I preach. Typically, when there's a crisis, and that was a crisis. I got through it. It was a 90-minute interview. Typically, what I coach people with, and you can apply it in your personal life and your professional life, the most important thing when there's a crisis and leading through crisis is to stabilize your own self. Stabilize your own self, because you can't help somebody if you can't help yourself. I mean, we all know that when you travel in the plane, the announcement comes on and it says, in case of emergency, the oxygen mask will descend, put it over your face before helping anybody else. You have to take care of yourself first. So the first step of making sure that you can get through a crisis and lead others through a crisis is to make sure you stabilize yourself. The first thing to do with that is understand the power of pause. That's what I did at the television interview. I interrupted the natural reaction of my central nervous system by just taking deep breaths. As he was introducing me, I focused on nothing else except deep breaths. And what I share with you is so simple, really simple, but it's so powerful. Hate things with big frameworks and fancy what. Keep it simple. The most important thing is you pause. There was a lady that I was helping years ago in Saudi. She was responsible for a one of the largest real estate companies in the region. And she was suffering. She was suffering so badly that her literal words to me were, everything's on fire. Staff morale is down. We're losing some of our best team players. All sales are down. The CEO's given 90 days to turn things around, or he's getting rid of at least 70% of the C-suite. It was just a toxic, terrible situation. She said, to be honest, they brought you in to help me, but I had no idea how you're going to be able to do that. I hate my life, I hate my job, and I can't fix this. I understood that she wasn't leading, she was just overwhelmed with panic. So I explained to her the power of taking deep breaths, controlling your breathing before making an important decision. Control your breathing, deep breaths, and you will see the difference it makes. In fact, the next week, after practicing that for a week, when I came back to her, she said that people had said to her, they noticed the difference. But she felt embarrassed because she didn't realize how bad she'd been for people to actually notice the difference. So when there's a crisis, for example, my slides stopped working. Deep breath, pause. The power of a pause cannot be underestimated. Once I was able to help her to pause and take those deep breaths and just get a bit more control, I was able to move to the next anchor of stability during a time of crisis when you're talking about your own self, and that is the reality that everything that you do is going to be based on what you perceive. So let's have a look at what's really the problem here. You're saying that everything's on fire. That's all you're doing is firefighting. Let's see what's really happening. Not what you feel is happening, but what does the data support? What we did, very primitive, we just wrote down a pressure point map. On the back of you can do it on the back of a handkerchief, on the back of a piece of paper. All the problems that she was facing, what's causing those problems? Get down to it. What's really causing those problems? And what she found was actually, it wasn't a strategy problem like she thought. It wasn't that there was a skill gap. It wasn't that people didn't care about their work. The problem was communication. People were working in silos. They weren't communicating well together. But because she'd been in a state of panic, because her breathing, because she wasn't able just to stabilize herself, she was focusing on, which what many leaders do at a time of crisis, focusing on the wrong problems. The reality was, on the ground, communication. So she was then able to turn all of her attention to focus on improving the communication. That's where the root cause of the problem was. The second thing, once you're able to perceive things accurately, and by the way, we all saw the situation and still witness the situation in the region. That's a good example of that. There was a lot of hysteria when things started 5 weeks ago plus, 6 weeks ago. A lot of hysteria, a lot of emotion involved, which is understandable. But the reality, what the data shows, is that people are incredibly safe here. Much safer here, personally for myself, much safer to be here than back home in my country. Much safer. But again, it's how you perceive things. And then the third thing, the third anchor after you pause and you perceive, is to turn your attention to position. How do you want to position yourself? So now she wants to get control of herself. How does she do it? She came up with this phrase. She said that she wants to bring light, not heat. She wants to help, not hurt. So she would write this at the top of her notepad before a meeting. She would say this to herself in the car. She would say this, she told me she would say this even before she would go home, because she wanted to also, when she went home, not bring all the problems from work. She wanted to bring the light, not the heat. She wanted to help, not hurt. These three small anchors of pausing to allow you to perceive things properly. And once you perceive things properly, you're then able to position yourself. How do you want to be known as, seen as, during this time of crisis? The first step to stabilizing yourself. When you stabilize yourself, as any leader knows, the next thing to do, of course, is make sure that your team's okay. And what I'll share with you here is not a boring framework or a long framework or anything like that. And everything I'm sharing here, by the way, I'll be here all day. I'm happy to send it all to you. The thing to do when you want to focus on your team is empower them. Now, empowerment is a beautiful word that's abused and misused every single day. Typically, many leaders will say, team, you're empowered, but then micromanage and follow up everything that they do. I'll tell you a great example of empowerment. I think all of us and most of the world acknowledge that one of the best leaders universally throughout the world is the great leader who, of course, has passed away, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, despite not going to business school, despite not taking the traditional conventional path, is seen globally as a fantastic example of bringing people together and leading them. And a journalist once said to Nelson Mandela, how do you do it? How do you lead so effectively with no training? How? He said, I used to watch my father. My father did two things. My father was the tribal chief, and he did two things. Number one, whenever he had a meeting as the tribal chief, he didn't sit at the head of the table. He sat amongst the people. First thing, positioning. Secondly, he said, my father was always the last one to speak. When he would ask people for their advice and their opinions, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? He was the last person to speak. That's empowerment. You're actively handing the power to people. That's what he did. And when you need to lead your team through crisis, knowing that you yourself have stabilized yourself, you've set your position, you know, this is how I want to be seen, this is how I want to be to behave, this is my guiding phrase. You sit with your team in a time of crisis and you ask questions. And you encourage them to answer, because when they answer, they feel ownership. They feel responsible. Typically, 5 key questions. There are more or less, but 5 really great questions to ask your team to get through a time of crisis. Clarity. What's really happening on the ground, guys? Tell me. Listen to them. What's really happening? But guide them. Not what you feel is happening, although feelings are important. What's actually happening on the ground? You get clarity. Have a conversation. It's just a brainstorming session with them. But you're going to understand from them and guide them to see exactly what's happening. They're also going to guide you to see what's happening. You seek to get clarity. The next thing you ask a team in a time of crisis, when you're having that huddle, when you're having that meeting, is, what can we learn from this? What's it teaching us? Because at a time of crisis, it's easy to focus on the crisis, but not on what we can learn from this, what we can benefit from this. When people sit together and say, what do you mean, what are we learning? No, what are we learning? Tell me what we can learn. People seek out positives from a situation, learning experiences. So what can we learn from this? This is just a conversation, a brainstorm. Empathy, who's affected? In a time of crisis, people are often neglected. People are often affected. You're seeing it right now. There are businesses that are killing it when it comes to showing empathy at the right time, in the right place. And there are other businesses and other organizations that have absolutely jumped over that. They're not focused on empathy at all. I'm okay. Doesn't bother me. What about the people it does bother? This helps to understand who's affected, truly affected, and make sure that help and support is given to them. What's the next move? A great question to ask your team in a time of crisis. Where do we go from here? What's next? As leaders, we often feel, especially in a time of crisis, we have to have all the answers. We have to be the one to tell people, this is what we're going to do. They don't need you to have all the answers. They need stability. They need stability. So what's the next move? Studies have shown that when we focus on what's next, it uplifts us. When we focus on what was and what is today, it can bring us down. So you want to galvanize people. You want to inspire people. Get them thinking about what's the next move. And the last thing after that, what will we do differently next time? Similar to learning, but what will we do differently next time? 3 things to stabilize yourself in a time of crisis, and 5 questions to ask your team in order to help them through a time of crisis. The reality is, there is no avoiding crisis, as I said at the start. It comes with the territory. If you're a business owner and responsible for a team, no matter how small or big, it comes with the territory. You're going to have to embrace crisis. But crisis will never change who you are. Crisis will certainly reveal who you are. You don't need to be that person with all the answers. You don't need to be that person that leads the way, acts like what you think a leader should be. They need stability from you. And this is the time to show it. When crisis hits, who will you become? You know, I'll close here by telling you something. Remember I told you I found myself homeless? I went from having it all to having nothing. And I went through years and years and years of no communication with my parents, or very little, especially with my father. And I was always meant to take over his business. I went from having it all to having nothing. I remember walking in the cold, saying to myself, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to do what didn't happen to me. I was taken away from my father's business. I'm going to create a business, and I'm going to make sure that my family are part of that as long as they want to be. My father asked me to leave the house. I'm going to make sure as much as I can that I keep my family together. If I ever get the chance. Now, some 32 years later, I'm 52, I stand here on this stage with you guys looking at me. And I feel overwhelmed with gratitude that you're listening to me and that you haven't walked out. I feel overwhelmed with gratitude to the clients that we have who look to us for guidance on leadership development, team building, and all these amazing things that we believe so passionately about, things that I love so much. But when I stand here, and yes, my job title is, I'm CEO of Afia Partners, Successful business, yes. Great company, yes. But it's so much more than that for me. This is legacy for me. Why? Because Afia Partners consists of myself and the other partners. And every single partner in Afia Partners is a member of the family. So everybody from my children, even my grandchildren, directors of happiness, my children, my grandchildren, all of those people, they are Afia Partners. In fact, I'll ask my team to stand up, my family to stand up. You could all stand up. I know you don't want to, including my dear mother. Out of that crisis, at that time, I remember thinking, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to make something like this happen. Didn't know if it would ever happen, but it did. There's no escaping it. There's no escaping crisis. But the question is, when crisis hits, who will you become? Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. I will be here all day. We all will be here all day. So any questions, anything you want, I'm here. Most of what I shared from you is in chapter 9 of my book. It's not a plug on the book, but it's genuinely, if anyone wanted to get the book, come up to me and I'll be able to share the details with you. Because when I wrote the book, I never imagined chapter 9 would be in such high demand. Chapter 9 is leading through crisis. So I'll be here all day. I'm happy to help any of you that need any help. Thank you again for listening. And thank you to my wonderful team and my mother for putting up with me after all these years.